Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we have on our first part of our episode today, we will be talking about promoting and enhancing the field of tourism. The Ministry of Tourism has formed a crisis operation chamber to follow up on the traveling warnings issued by a number of European countries last week in regards to traveling to Sharm el-Sheikh and the airline's suspension of their flights to the city. Ministry of Tourism has formed the crisis operation chamber to follow up on the traveling warnings issued by a number of European countries last week in regards and on boosting the field of tourism. We have with us Mr. Mohamed Sheta, media expert. A very good morning, sir. And we have the pleasure to have you with us here on Breakfast Show.
Thank you very much. Very good morning to you and to your viewers as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Sheta. First, let's agree that terrorism is now a global phenomenon, and that it's not only Egypt that is suffering from this phenomena, as we saw in France last Friday, that it was hit by a series of terrorist attacks. Until this morning, there was shooting and attacks in many places in Paris. So they were chasing some terrorists. So do you think that France will suffer the same as Egypt, and that its tourism sector will be negatively impacted?
Well, of course, first of all, I'd like to send out my sincerest condolences to the families of the victims, not only in Paris, but also to the victims in Beirut and all the other recent terrorist attacks we had in Kabul, in Mumbai, in Cairo, in Luxor, yes, everywhere in the world, actually. So it has been a international, international problem, yes, all over the past decades. We in Egypt and the Middle East have been suffering from that for years now. And all our previous presidents, like Sadat, Mubarak, they always kept on telling even the former President Mitterrand that this is an international crisis and that terrorism is an international phenomenon which all of the international community need to face and to fight. Unfortunately, the European countries, they never really give it that much of attention until it hit them themselves, you know. And I just read a very controversial post actually recently in one of the social medias, yes, and it was saying when terror hits Europe, it is called terrorism, and when it hits the Middle East, it's called freedom and democracy. So I think now
the double standards.
The double standards, of course, yes. And one of the main problems actually is that since the attacks in New York, the 9/11. Yes. The international community really didn't find any solutions for the roots of the terrorism. They tried to fight terrorism by military actions, by security measurements, but they never talked to the Muslim community in these countries to see where the problem is. And I think instead of spending those billions and trillions of dollars in the war on terror, which at the end actually created ISIS, if you look at it, it would have been a much better idea to invest those trillions in the development of these countries in the Middle East and in South Asia. If they would have spent this money much wisely, I think we wouldn't have all these terrorist attacks right now. Yeah. So France actually has been suffering from those terrorist attacks since the attacks of Charlie Hebdo, and I think this is not the last attack we see in France or in Europe, and probably it will not affect the tourism as much as many would think, because they get 70 million tourists every year, yes, in France.
It's number one touristic destination.
Exactly. So I think it will, and you know that the tourists, they usually they forget very quickly. So I think it will be only a matter of a few weeks.
This time it was a major attack. It won't be easily forgotten by tourists, not like the attack that took place in Charlie Hebdo. But this time it targeted many touristic destinations, and we had many foreigners who died in these attacks. I think it will take quite some time to return back to normal So what do you think?
Well, it's definitely going to take a little bit of time, but we have to notice that also France has been taking lots of measures recently.
Yes.
They have risen the security alerts all over France during the past couple of days. Actually, since the attacks of Charlie Hebdo, they have been enforcing lots of security and safety measures, not only in the airports but also in the other cities. So I think they definitely suffer for a while. I, for myself, I wouldn't feel comfortable now traveling to Paris or any place else in.
Actually, many world places are threatened now, not only Paris.
We just saw yesterday the soccer match between Germany and the Netherlands was cancelled due to a bomb threat, and they said they found a bomb or a dummy of a bomb hidden in an ambulance car in front of the stadium in Hanover, where Chancellor Angela Merkel was supposed to attend as well. And just this morning we heard about the clashes between the French police forces.
Yes, actually we have here some photos for the clashes in the morning.
The report.
In France, yes.
We saw it's an ongoing process, and they said that they have been surrounding an apartment where 3 of potential terrorists have been hiding, including the mastermind of the Paris attacks, apparently. So definitely there's lots there's still many things are going on, not only in France but also in Germany and in Belgium.
Yes.
Because obviously Belgium is now the high.
Very close to France.
It is, yes. Of course, it's very close to France. Actually, one or two of the Paris attackers, they fled to Belgium in the same night after they finished the attacks, and they asked a friend of them to come pick them up from Belgium, and this is how they found out, through this rented car with the Belgian license plates. So of course the police forces there, they have been very active, but nevertheless it shows us how uncontrollable those terror attacks are. It's the same with the crash of the Metrojet, with the Russian Metrojet plane, which we had on the Sinai a couple of weeks ago, and of course the British government came out very, very quickly and said we had some intelligence information that there was an attack planned. Well, why didn't you tell us that there was something planned? Okay, and how come you knew about the Sinai plane crash and you didn't know about the attacks in Paris? Although the attacks in Paris needed at least months of preparation, you know. So I think it's not very easy to control the terrorist attacks, and the international community really need to solve the problems of terrorism at the roots, not only in Europe but in the Middle East and in South Asia.
Okay, Mr. Mohamed Sheta, we'll go for a short break, and we'll get back to you to resume our interview.
Sure.
So stay tuned.
This is the 4th time that I've been to this particular hotel, and I've also been to a further one just along the road, but also been to Cairo 5 times because I have family that live out in Cairo.
Egypt to me is like just something so special about Egypt. You feel very comfortable and very at home, and I come here all the time. I've been coming for the last 10 years.
First time we've been to Sharm, and we found the service here excellent, and we couldn't wish for a better holiday. And we go home tomorrow, and that's it.
The atmosphere is so good, so relaxed. The weather, of course, is the main reason we come. We like your history, of course, it all started here. We just like everything about Egypt, and I'd recommend it for anybody that wants to come and have a nice holiday.
It's my first time in Egypt, and we're enjoying it it's really nice over here.
We invite all the people from different countries to come just Sharm and enjoy and see the lovely weather and the lovely people here.
Egypt is a beautiful place with lovely, friendly people. The climate is good, the staff are good, and Egyptians are very polite people.
Я люблю Египет, yes.
Я люблю Египет.
What I would say about Egypt, it is absolutely fantastic.
And I love it.
I find the people very, very friendly.
Egypt is a fantastic country.
Египет – это самый прекрасный уголок во всем мире. Лучше Египта, наверное, нету места.
Everybody that we've spoken to is very friendly.
I would say for everybody to always come to Egypt. If you've never been to Egypt before, once you go to Egypt, you will always go to Egypt.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we have with us here in the studio and the relationship between the attacks that took place in tourism in Egypt.
Well, I think the word promoting tourism is very important in this context, because actually what we need to do now is focus on promoting tourism, not only the tourism in Sinai or in Sharm el-Sheikh, but tourism all over Egypt. We have Luxor and Aswan, we have Bahariya, we have the Western Desert, we have the White Desert, for example. And I think we need to have a variety of tourism offers in Egypt, not only the leisure tourism at the Red Sea, because actually this is this sector is the tourism sector from which Egypt benefits the least. Actually, if you look at most of the tourists coming to Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada, they call them the all-inclusive tourists from Russia and from Italy. And if you look at the prices of these packages they buy, for example, they can buy a 1 week or 2 weeks package starting from 200 euros till 400 euros for 2 weeks, all-inclusive, including all their meals, all their drinks, even the alcoholic drinks and the non-alcoholic drinks inside the hotel. So actually, most of these tourists, they don't go out of the hotel. You know, they stay in the hotel the whole time. They don't go out to the shops in Hurghada downtown, for example. They don't do safaris. So most of the Egyptians working around these hotel complexes, they don't really benefit from it. And besides, I think we should focus more on the more expensive tourism offers. For example, the cultural tourism is extremely important. If you look, for example, at the Japanese tourists and also the Chinese tourists.
And the French tourists also.
Sorry?
And the French tourists also.
The European tourists in general, they spend lots of
culture.
money. But the tourists who spend most of the money are well known, the Nouveau Riche, Chinese, of course, and traditionally the Japanese tourists.
Yes.
So I think we should focus more on that. And what we need to focus more is that we should contact and we should target and approach those tourists with their mindset, not with our mindset. Because I've been reading in the news, for example, there has been a delegation from the Egyptian community coming from Paris to promote tourism. Excuse me, what does a delegation from the Egyptian community in France has to do with promoting tourism? Because nobody actually in France, not one single newspaper would write about a small delegation from the Egyptian community coming to Egypt. This has nothing to do with promoting tourism at all. And for example, all the other initiatives which we read, for example, a motorcycle trip from Cairo to Hurghada done through some Egyptian bikers. What does this have? How would this promote tourism outside Egypt? Because actually, nobody's covering. There's not one single international TV channel covering all these local promotion things, you know. So we really need
wide-scale campaign.
Sorry.
Yes. Sir, as a media expert, what do you think? As a media expert, what do you think is the importance of media in promoting tourism in the country?
It's very important, actually. The problem,
and the possibilities, and how could this help?
Actually, for example, Nile TV is one of the best examples because you have an English channel, you have a French channel. Maybe it's about time to have a German channel as well, in order to approach and to get in touch with the European viewers directly, not through their channels only. Of course, it's very important to invite the reporters and journalists of the international TV channels to come to Egypt and to witness all the different offers we have in Egypt, and also to take their comments and really work on them, you know, and maybe even ask them, what would you like to see here in Egypt? Where do you think there's room for improvement, for example? If we go to the international tourism exhibitions, for example, like ITB in Berlin, which is one of the most famous tourism exhibitions, to be honest, I haven't seen any development in the Egyptian stand over the past 15 or 20 years. If you go to the other stands of the other countries, every year they have a new theme. Every year they have a completely new stand. They have new attractions for the tourists. So this is what we need to do. We need to go to the tourists in their country and see how their mindset is, what they want to see, and how they would like to spend their vacation in Egypt. I'll give you an example. I was on Instagram a couple of days ago, and I saw there was one blogger, one adventure blogger, and he was like, he came to Egypt and he didn't like what he saw. You know, he talked, for example, about the taxi drivers and the camel guys at the pyramids.
So we are talking about services now.
The services in Egypt are horrible. We need to face it. We need to improve.
How can we face them and improve them?
Well, it's very easy actually. When you arrive to Egypt at the international arrival, for example, you only walk 10 meters and everyone is coming to you. You need a taxi, sir? You need a taxi? Well, if I want a taxi, I'm going to go get a taxi.
They're too persuasive.
Extremely persuasive and extremely annoying, you know. And of course, I don't want to tell you how many situations I saw where taxi drivers were inside, even at the luggage belt, trying to rip off the tourists right even before they stepped out of the airport. So this is something we really need to tackle, and this is something very easy. You can make as many crisis meetings in Sharm el-Sheikh or inside the Ministry of Tourism. If you don't tackle the impression the tourist gets the second he steps on Egyptian soil, then you will never be able to improve your tourism in Egypt. So
when are they going to start working on the ground actually to solve these problems that every tourist that comes to the country faces, like the taxi drivers, like being very persuasive, like being I don't want to go on being negative, but when are they going to do this, take a decisive decision to stop what's taking place in the country?
Well, it's very easy. Let's see what the other countries did. For example, Dubai. Dubai has been
when you come to discuss Dubai, you're talking about an icon now in tourism.
Exactly. Dubai is now, I think it's one of the most well-known Arab cities worldwide, you know, and even I know lots of foreigners, for example, they never went to Dubai, but they're so fascinated from what they have seen on pictures, from what their friends have told them.
It's a very small city. It's a very small city.
And actually, it has no sightseeing. It doesn't have even 1% of what Egypt has.
It's extremely booming.
It's extremely booming. Why? Because when they started their tourism campaigns and their tourism strategies 20 years ago, they got lots of British and Germans and Americans working for their tourism authority, because they want the mind of the people they want to attract, and these are the people who know how their fellow citizens think and what they want to see. And this is one of the things which we lack in Egypt in every sector, not only in the tourism sector but also in the road safety sector, for example. We need to get experts, foreign experts, with their expertise, because whenever you get a foreign expert, they tell you, no, Egypt is a different case. Egypt is, no, it's not a different case. I mean, there are basics, and these basics are based on knowledge and based on scientific grounds. So if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have the know-how, you will never be able to succeed. So what we have in Egypt right now is that, to be honest, most of the Egyptian hotel owners, for example, or the Egyptian investors in the tourism sector, I think they don't want to really open up the tourism sector for foreign investors as well. And I think it's not only in the tourism sector, it's also in, for example, in the automotive sector, which is also extremely important, because I don't think that Egypt should only rely on the tourism sector. I think we need more sustainable industrial sectors on which Egypt should rely in developing its economy, because like you just saw, a bomb in a plane and the complete tourism sector came almost to a standstill, you know. So we need to focus on different and more sustainable industrial sectors as well. Just a couple of days ago, there was something called an automotive strategy, which was presented to the Prime Minister's office, and he refused it because the Egyptian investors in the automotive sector who did this strategy, it was not very convincing for the Prime Minister, so he returned it back to the Minister of Finance in order to give his opinion as well. And of course, most of the Egyptian investors currently, they don't want more competition, because the Egyptian market is a very lucrative market, and there's lots of money inside the market. So first of all, they don't want to really produce any products they can export. This is why, for example, the automotive sector has been also almost standing still for the past 15 years. I'll just give you an example. They always talk about exporting cars and exporting components. And just a couple of days ago, a very well-known German car manufacturer from Munich, instead of, he's going to move one of his manufacturing lines from the United States to South Africa, to their factory in South Africa. I was wondering, why didn't they come to Egypt instead of South Africa?
Sir, before we wrap up today's episode, there's a very important question I wanted to ask you. You know, of course, that last Sunday there was a stand at the pyramids in solidarity with France and Russia, and there was the switching of both flags on the pyramids, which was a very good initiative and gesture from the Egyptians. And in this respect, I want to ask you, when is there going to be solidarity and unity between all the world in fighting tourism?
Well, hopefully.
And a quick answer, please.
Well, unfortunately, we needed this very dramatic incident in France, so that the international community finally woke up and noticed that this is an international phenomenon which needs to be tackled and which needs to be fought by all the international forces. Now, Russia knows that it's an international threat. Now, the United States finally acknowledged that it's international threat. So it's a very sad story that we needed those attacks in Paris. So finally, everyone knows that it's an international threat. And I hope that they notice that we in the Middle East have been suffering most from those non-Islamic, which I called which I really, and I like this hashtag NISIS, because there's a new hashtag, it's called NISIS, which stands for Non-Islamic State.
Can you spell it, please?
NISIS,
NISIS.
So I hope that they know that this has nothing to do with Islam, and that the Muslim community in the Middle East and East Asia, they are suffering most from those so-called Islamist
It's obvious that you're too into social media.
A little bit.
Mr. Mohamed Sheta, media expert, thank you so much for joining us here on Nile TV and Breakfast Show. Where, dear viewers, stay with us. We'll be back again.
First, Rana will have a report. It's about Cairo International Film Festival in its 37th session. So our reporter Basma Taha was there and filed in the following report.